Welcome back to the Thriving in Love podcast, the podcast that challenges the status quo so couples can thrive as their most authentic selves. I'm your host, Sana, and today I have a very special guest, Malak. She is a financial coach for Muslim women. Malak, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to dive into your world, share your wisdom with my audience.
Thank you for having me, Sana. I'm so excited to be here. I love talking about money, especially money and marriage. It gets me going.
Yes. Well, before we dive into all of your wisdom, I would love to learn a little bit about you. How did you get started in this work? What were you doing before? And what inspired you to even start your Instagram page, which, by the way, is incredible?
Thank you. Okay, so my story's a little interesting. So I was introduced into the financial world when I was a senior in high school. I had the opportunity to take an elective financial literacy class, and that class honestly changed my life. I was 17. I learned how to budget and how to invest at 17, which I think is very rare. Most people don't learn that. I actually think it's crazy that financial literacy is not a requirement for graduation. Like, that still blows my mind, And that, like, out of my graduating class of 400 seniors, only like 30 of us took this course, but
Yeah, that's insane. It should be mandatory for sure.
It literally should be mandatory. Like, we learn things that we forget and never use that are required for graduation, but not finances, I guess. So,
the most important tool to be an adult in society.
It's the tool that touches our everyday life. Like, quite literally every day you need money, right? So yeah, I took that course, and then I was able to use a lot of those skills in college and then as a young adult. And I found myself kind of informally giving my peers advice whenever the subject of money came up, because I was just, good at it, at like budgeting my money and investing and utilizing credit cards and not getting into debt and everything. While I was going through undergrad, I majored in public health, and then I ended up working in the public health field. And then I even went to go get my master's in public health. Before, was inspired to start my business and my Instagram page around financial coaching when I decided to go to grad school, and I was going to quit my full-time job, and I needed a side hustle. And, once you like start working full time, you start making money, it's really hard to go back to being a broke student. And I did not want to be a broke student. So I was like, okay, like, and this is like, when women are always asking, like, should I start a side hustle? It's like, think about the skills that you have where you're 2 steps ahead of the average person, right? That you can monetize. And for me, I was like, well, what am I good at? I kept like thinking in my head, I was like, wait, I'm good with money. Like, and I've heard financial coaching is a thing. So I went and I got officially trained, and then I like started my business, and it was supposed to be a side hustle while I completed my master's, and then it just took off way more than I expected. And I was juggling it and my master's simultaneously in 1 year. And then by the end of the year, I was like, well, I could go back to 9 to 5, or I could just continue down this road. And I just loved helping Muslim women. I think Muslim women are very neglected in this area when it comes to money. And I just love what I do, and I love the impact that I get to have. Now it's 3 years of my business. I just passed my 3-year anniversary two weeks ago.
Congratulations. Yeah. That is incredible. What a story. I just want to touch on real quickly what you said. You don't need to be this like expert in order to start entrepreneurship. You simply need to be 2 steps ahead of most people, and you can start there. What made you realize that? Because I think right now when I'm coaching women on starting their online businesses, that is something that is like brand new information for so many people. They think that they need to have so many credentials, so much expertise, so much. And yes, integrity matters a lot.
Of course.
And, having the wisdom, having the knowledge that isn't just something that you think, it's not based on theories and ideas and opinions, it's something very tangible. So you do have that. You have the financial literacy course that most people don't get at your age.
Right.
So like,
yeah. And it was a lot of self-study too after that course, right?
Okay,
so the course was like the introduction, and then I would attend a lot of like Islamic finance seminars, a lot of like workshops on my campus. I continue to kind of foster the learning,
curiosity.
Right? Yeah.
How did you feel ready to start when you did start?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I actually did a lot of like, I got the idea, right? And then I think I'm very grateful that I have a support system, because I started kind of a good support system. I started bouncing the idea off with them, and I was like, hey, how do you feel if I started talking about money, coaching others about money? And they were like, well, you did that with me, so yeah, why not, right? And kind of getting the verbal encouragement from people who love me, because sometimes, it's really scary to do something like this. So having verbal confirmation from people who know you and support you and love you was really helpful. And then I was like, okay, great. So let me try it out, right? Let me do free sessions, right? And I would do free sessions with people and they would give me great feedback. And those would act as testimonials for me. So I kind of had like that experience and those testimonials in my back pocket before I officially started, which really gave me the confidence to be like, okay, yes, I can do this, right? So even if you need to like start out free, right? Like do what you need to do. And it's almost like, I forget what we call it in business, but it's like proof of concept. Oh yes, proof of concept, right? Like you just need to like get proof that you can do this, right? That this works. Like do what you need
Exactly.
to do, right? And again, you don't have to be this like great expert. Like you don't need to be like all these like financial gurus who make like, have millions of followers. Like it doesn't matter. People need you. They need your voice. Somebody's out there looking for you. So
100%. I believe that
yeah,
wholeheartedly. Thank you so much. We're going to dive into the nitty gritty of what you
love it.
do and how you can help couples. What are some of the must have financial conversations before getting married?
I love this question. So I would say a few things. I would say clear expectations on how the bills will be split, and what that will look like in practicality. Not like a lot of people are just like, they just go like, yeah, you're going to be the provider, right? Like we're good and my money's my money. And it's like, no, like let's actually talk about like what that means. What are your expectations for your life, right? Like, do you want a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Los Angeles, right? Like that's going to look much different than some like suburb, an hour south, right? Or a one
So
bedroom, one
true.
house. Like it's like, what do you want your life to look like? Do you want to be close to family? Do you not want to be close to family? Like, do you want to work remotely? Do you want to be able to travel a lot? Like, what do you want your life to look like? What can your husband actually afford? Like, sit down and create a budget together. I know that sounds underrated, but it's like, actually, this is what we can afford. This is what our life will look like. And then as a woman, what are you willing to spend your money on, right? To contribute to the household. I always like to tell women, like, especially Muslim women, go with the assumption that your husband's going to pay for the main things. So we can talk about rent, maybe mortgage, transportation, insurance, food, groceries. Let him take
Car,
care of the main
bills.
things,
Uh,
cars, bills. Let him take care of those main things, right? And then if there are things that will like up level your life, then you can chip in there, right? So things like maybe extracurricular activities for the kids or extra vacations, or if you want to go to Umrah, right? Those are things like your husband's actually not obligated to pay for, right? But if you have an income, then you can contribute, right? So like practically being like, what would our day-to-day life look like as a couple, right? Financially, who's taking on what? Because I see that a lot with couples. They get angry, right? About the misalignment of expectations, right? When it comes to
and it's
bills.
simply because they didn't have the conversation.
They didn't have the conversation. Yeah, they had very, very vague conversations about like what that means, right?
Yeah.
Which it does not fly in today's world,
No.
unfortunately.
No,
Um,
I think the most important thing to do before you get engaged is create a list of everything that goes into running a household.
yes,
Literally down to
literally.
like you said, the groceries, the car payments, the gas, the insurance, the of the house, electricity, everything, right?
Yes, I
Have a
agree.
clear vision of what that looks like. What I like to say to my couples, because I do couples counseling, is because in this day and age, sometimes women are making more money than men. So in this day and age, what I like to say is whoever is making more money, how much more are they making percentage wise? Usually that person is, if you decide to go the split route, then
Yeah,
that person usually puts in that percent
yeah,
more.
yeah, and I think
Um,
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Yeah, a
But
thousand percent.
I'm a hypocrite here because my husband and I started that way. And now we've been married for 9 years. And a year ago, he offered to cover all of the bills because he started making a lot more than me.
Mm,
Now I'm in that boat. What you were saying earlier is
yeah,
have the man provide the bills. And then I love that you said, where can I put in my money? My money can go towards the investments, our vacations, our fun, our like that
yes.
vibrant energy that a woman
Hmm.
is like here to bring into a marriage
Oh
anyway.
my God, totally. And you feel
Yeah.
so much better as a woman when you know your money's going towards that stuff anyway. That's like making your life better instead of like you pitching in for the essentials. Cause I think a lot of women end up feeling resentment when they have to do that.
And money
So
is energy. So like how
money
you
is
spend
energy.
it matters.
Totally.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
I would also say you brought up a good point about women making more than men. This is
Hmm.
something I also am very particular about making sure women ask their potential spouse. Because I asked a man once, I was like, how do you feel if I made more than you? If I made six figures? And he wasn't making six figures at the time. And he was like, oh, that would make me uncomfortable. And that was an immediate red flag. I was like,
Yes.
absolutely not, sir. Like, you have a fragile ego. You are not going to support me and you are going to resent me. And I think, like, and a lot of women are like, yeah, well, I don't make more money than my husband, or I'm going to be a stay at home wife, so who cares? But I'm like, you never know what money you might come into in the future.
Yes.
Whether you come into inheritance or some unexpected like tax refund, or you decide you want to start a business and that business becomes really successful in the future. And then
Marriage is
there's a lot of
long. We change and we shift.
marriage is
And
long. You're going to
yeah,
become a different person. You might be a different person in 20 years. You just don't know. And
in
you
five
want a
years.
man in
Yes.
5 years. You want a man who's going to support you, whatever you decide to pursue, and
Mm,
who's not going to be intimidated by the fact that you might make more money than him. And I know that seems like a silly question to like really be like a stickler on, but I
it's
have
a big
seen
one.
this with my clients specifically when the woman makes more unexpectedly than the man and they didn't talk about it.
Mm.
Like it creates a lot of friction in their marriage.
And
And
that's
I
the
had a couple,
patriarchy ingrained in them
yeah, yeah,
that they can do a little healing work on. It's not an end all be
totally,
all. If you're totally in love
no,
with this guy and he has that as a mindset, there are healing modalities and therapy work and this and that we can do to get him to understand that his programming is coming from the patriarchy that conditions men to think that if they're not the main provider, the main breadwinner of the household, it's a hit to their ego. And instead, you can soothe them and let them know, hey, I'll still love you, if not more, if you shift
right?
this mindset. So, yeah,
Yes, exactly. And speaking
it's
of
not
mindset, the last thing I would say about what to talk about before marriage is scarcity and abundance mindset with money. You really want to get inquisitive about how somebody thinks about money, right?
yeah,
Are they more of like the miserly type, right? Are they more of the abundance mindset to the point where it's almost recklessness, right? Where it's like you're actually
mm,
just being irresponsible now, right?
so
Do a
true.
little test and be like, how do you feel about buying like a $2,000 couch? And be like, what's their response? Do they think that's like a worthwhile purchase, or do they think that's frivolous, right? Getting a gauge of their spending behavior is really helpful too, because that creates so many daily minutia fights within
100%.
couples every day, right?
Yep. Misalignment on how to spend the money
And how to spend the
is,
money. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing. That's
So
super
welcome.
valuable. What do you mean when you say that the husband's duty is to provide for his
Mhm.
family and that is between him and Allah?
Yes. So essentially, like women, we know that the man's supposed to provide, right? Because that's his duty Islamically. But I think sometimes women use it almost as an excuse of for them not to take care of themselves financially. Like, I don't need to worry about having my own stream of income. I don't need to have my own investments. I don't need to have my own retirement accounts because my husband's supposed to provide for me. I think it creates too many women are too lax in this area. And I think we need a little bit more self preservation. We need to bring back more self preservation as women. Um,
Agreed.
because at the end of the day, your husband providing for you, like, he's not doing it for you. He's doing it because God asked him to, right?
Mm,
And God's going to ask him on the day of judgment, like, did you provide for your wife like I asked you to? And he's going to be responsible whether he did or didn't. But that doesn't negate you as a woman from taking care of yourself financially. Like, he's doing what God told him to do, which is great. Like, that benefits us, so it's great. But it doesn't mean, hey, I'm super neglectful about having my own income, taking care of myself, having an emergency fund, having retirement, like, you still need to take care of yourself because you don't know what could happen. You don't know if your husband will pass away. You don't know if you two will grow apart and maybe get a divorce. Like, nobody gets married to get divorced, right?
of course, yeah.
But life happens, right?
Hmm.
Um, and you just need to have something to protect you and take care of you should anything happen, right? And I've seen too many stories of my clients. I have a lot of single moms as clients, a lot of divorced clients, and that's like the common theme amongst all of them is like they got too relaxed about the financial obligations towards themselves
Yeah.
during their marriage, and then their divorce hit them out of the blue. It wasn't something they were expecting, and now they're like almost having to start over, right? And now there's kids involved, right? And they have to support their children, and sometimes their exes are like not great people and they don't show up
Ugh.
for them or their families financially, because divorce also changes people, right? Sometimes the process brings out the worst. And so it's just dangerous, I think, for a woman to neglect herself financially. And that's why I say, like, God is doing this, he's asking men, and that's between him and God. It's not, has nothing to do with you, right?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes in this day and age, especially if you ask a man, like, do you actually want to provide for your life? They're like, no, but I have to, right? And that's not all men, but it's like, they're not doing this for you. They're doing it for the sake of God, which is great for them, and we benefit from it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean we don't take care of ourselves in
So
addition to them taking care of us. Yeah.
I completely love that you said that, because when my husband did first offer to pay, I started to feel so much guilt at
Yeah.
first. That was like my first initial emotion that came through was I feel guilty for the fact that we're in this financial situation. I'm not doing better and this, and I let that get to me for so long until I started doing the healing work around that emotion, where I was like, wait a minute, him doing this for me means that Allah is going to bless him. And it happened
Yes.
immediately. Like as soon, like a month later, he
Wow.
got this
Wow.
massive job opportunity that
Yeah.
just propelled his career to the place that he like wanted it to be.
Yeah, that's
And I'm like,
amazing.
I'm a huge believer in, heaven is right here on earth if you
Yes.
are choosing that, mindset and frequency, and just like really allowing Allah to like be in your marriage and be in
Oh,
your household.
totally. Yeah,
So,
exactly. And that's why I say, like, it's between him and God. Like, it has nothing to do
yeah,
with you.
100%. And
I
then
mean,
when
like,
that happened, I was like, oh, damn, like he's on his own journey with Allah.
yeah,
Like
he's
this
on
has
his own
nothing to
journey.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. But that does happen. I love that you said it has nothing to do with you. And I wish I had this episode to listen to when I was going through that journey.
yeah.
So
Well,
thank you for
alhamdulillah, I'm glad we're
saying
having these
that.
conversations now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And also what you said secondly, which is like it is important for us to still have our own money. And I want everyone listening here, whether you're Muslim or not, to know that when you make your own money, you just come into life with this new energy of like, I'm empowered, I'm taken care of, I'm not in survival mode anymore. I'm not like struggling and I'm not worried, right? It's this lift off of your shoulders that you're not constantly stuck in anxiety of what's going to happen. It really does help you balance your emotional state and your mental state, and honestly, your spiritual space too,
Yeah.
of like just feeling good and safe.
You described that so well, because I always say, like, I've never been able to articulate it as well as you just did, but I always say having your own money is sexy. And
Yeah.
I think it's because of that. It's like you feel so good about yourself as a woman. And I think men, when they have money, they feel good about themselves in a different way than women do. We feel good
Agree.
in, like, for us, money is less about status. It's more so about security, right?
Mm.
And also being able to be abundant and do the things that we want that are not necessarily like needs in our life, but wants. Like, if you make your own money and you're able to like go get your hair done or go get your nails done or buy a course that you want or like get coached by somebody that you look up to or go to a conference or go on a trip with girlfriends, like
Or
that.
invest in a friend's business, or like
Yes.
give to the poor, or like spend, like just be able to give the way
Be able to
women
give.
love to give,
Yes. Be
without
able
being like,
to.
oh, this is my husband's money, I can't like go
Yes.
donate to this and that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so sad. I mean, I've had women in my DMs who are like, Malak, like, I want to work with you. I want to buy your course. I want to attend your whatever event, but I can't because it's my husband who's in charge of the money, and
Oof.
he doesn't see the value in, your work the way I do, and he dictates the funds, and he says no. And I'm like, oh, I can't imagine being like, having that kind of chokehold in my life. Like, it really dampers your energy on a day-to-day basis.
And I'm just
So,
gonna say, like you said, it dampers the sex life that you have with your partner. And what's the point
oh,
of
I'm
having
sure it
this
does.
mediocre like marriage? Like we
I'm
didn't
sure
come
it
here
does.
like Allah doesn't want us to have these mediocre relationships. Like Allah wants to experience like marriage is so beautiful and sacred, and that intimate part of it is what makes it so beautiful. So
Oh,
like,
totally.
yeah.
Well, I think we also have, like, this is sort of a tangent, but we have a problem within the Muslim community of, like, marriage is supposed to be mediocre because we've seen, like, so many of the older generation have horrible marriages. And a lot of our mothers and aunts and grandmas settled in their marriages.
I'm
And
literally
stayed.
writing a book on a guide for modern marriages, not to have your parents' marriage.
Yeah,
Like,
not to have your
you're
parents' marriage, basically. We need a mindset shift around like marriage is actually not supposed to suck in Islam. Like if it did, Allah wouldn't have created it. Like let's be real. Like I think like there's this misconception that God wants us to be miserable in marriage, and it's like why? Like
I think it also goes back to that mindset of like, oh, this time in our life is
oh
just like a school, and then we
yes,
enjoy heaven. And that's
yes,
why I believe like, no, heaven is here, right here on
yeah,
earth
yeah.
for you to experience. Like I feel like we've
I
gone through
agree.
the day of judgment in terms of like, are you a good person or are you a bad person? It's so abundantly clear now. Like if you are pro Palestine or not, or if you were pro BLM or not, or if you were pro like wearing masks during COVID or not. Like
Right,
this
right.
is the time of judgment right here, right now. And what
Yeah,
you choose is the path to creating heaven, bliss on earth right
yeah.
here.
And I have one of my dear coaches who I follow. Her name is Zahra El Jabri. If you guys ever want to follow her, she's great because she talks about how like we've created this idea in our heads that we're not supposed to enjoy any part of Earth. But if you think about like if you actually like read the Quran's giving you insight on how to be happy, how to not be sad, how to like these guidelines set forth in our life are meant to help us have the healthiest, most fulfilled, happy lives because happy humans are better humans and better Muslims and just better beings in society. And it's just crazy to be like, no, we're going to be tested and punished on this earth, and it's all doom and gloom, and you only get to enjoy heaven. And like, it's just ridiculous. But anyway,
I
total
agree. Total tangent. Could talk about that
tangent.
forever. But okay, we're going to move on to the next question. What kind of jobs can Muslim mothers have that doesn't drain their energy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say to focus their efforts on like things that are online, right? That don't require going to the office. The first thing that comes to my mind is like being a virtual assistant, right? For somebody like myself, right? Or even yourself, like who kind of
Yeah.
if you don't want to start your own like coaching business or your own kind of like entrepreneurial enterprise, I guess, work for someone who's already started that and, you just help them. It's like, it's work like creating graphics in Canva or, writing emails or potentially answering people in the DMs. Like, it's not really like anything that's super overwhelming and you can choose your own hours. Another one is potentially copywriting, right? So writing copy for people who don't want to write copy, writing emails, writing Instagram captions, writing sales pages, like all that stuff, right? And those are good skills to have. You can also consider things like learning bookkeeping, right? So helping people if like you like numbers, right? And you're very like into math, like if you learn bookkeeping and you become a bookkeeper and start doing people's accounts, you don't know how many businesses don't want to do their own finances and they don't want to reconcile their own accounts. So if you're like math savvy, you could do that. Do tutoring. Like there's so many things that you could do that are part-time where you can work on your own schedule, that you could work like during that period of time, maybe when your kids aren't home, or you
Yeah.
can work when they're asleep. Like there's so many different options that you can consider. And you could also consider becoming a coach like I did, right? I was doing it part time, right? If you
Yeah.
have like these really solid skills and you want to build a brand and you really want to create a solid income source and you kind of don't mind in the internet and being online and on social media and potentially showing your face, like go for it. Like I think me starting this business was the best thing I've ever done in my life, honestly. So,
Can you tell me about how you felt when you were first starting compared to like the person that you became through the journey?
oh my god, totally. I was so okay. So to give you, I have like a large social media presence now. But before I started, I was one of those people on Instagram who had like no profile pic, zero pictures. Like I was
No
yours.
way.
I swear, I was just stalking people. I was the stalker, the silent
Wow.
stalker. Never posted anything, no stories, no posts, no pictures, nothing. So for me to go from that to like what I am today has been a
Wow.
journey. And if you scroll down to like my first reels or my first posts, they're honestly horrendous. Like they're so bad. But it's
And
like you
that's the
gotta start
beauty of
somewhere.
the evolution. And
Yeah.
like when you do go down this road of stepping into the ownership of your own life, it not only is like starting your own business or like making your own money good for your marriage, but it's so good for your own growth as a human being.
Totally.
So like
I
I
so
love
agree. And I've
that.
like learned skills that, have
Yeah.
helped me in different areas of my life.
And I know
Like
that's
just
why I'm
learning.
on earth. I want to
Yeah.
learn as much as I can and
Yeah.
grow as much as
Yeah.
I can.
And
Yeah.
it's been phenomenal. So
Well, how
yeah. And
was it hard for you to come out of your comfort zone from that space into the opposite end of it of like, going from consumer to creator?
yes. So it was difficult. And I want to, like, similar to how I said, like, if you're thinking about starting a business, start with giving out free services to just like local people that you know. Start slow with Instagram, right? Like, I started very tentatively and I was like, hey, like, to my followers, right? I wasn't a
Yeah.
public profile yet. I was just like, hey, like, I'm gonna start my little business. Like, and I put up a little story slide and I was like, okay, this is fun. I was able to do that. And then I was like, hey guys, help me choose a name for my business. And then people were like, oh, like, that's great. Like, we like this one or we don't like this one. And then I was like, giving them updates because I started talking about this when I was getting trained to be a financial coach. So, like, I brought people along on the journey and people really like that, right? When you bring them to the journey, they feel like they're part of your story, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like, it's like I still have followers who are like, I still remember when you were showing us like your business names, right? And people who grow with you. So
Wow.
so
That's
that
amazing.
helped doing that like little by little. And eventually I was like, okay, I started with like literally black screen, white text, right, on stories. And then it was like, okay, I can maybe put a selfie, right? I'm comfortable with that. And then it started like, let me get on video and talk for a little bit. And then it was just like baby steps. I definitely didn't go
Wow.
from no profile pic, complete stalker to where I am today, like in one go. So yeah.
That's so inspiring, though. That's amazing. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. That's so badass. Like,
And the more you
truly.
do it, the more comfortable you become, the more confident you become. I couldn't even imagine like doing a podcast like this like 3 years ago. I'd be like, absolutely not. But.
And like, I know you said it was like slow and like goes baby steps, but like 3 years is not a long time at all. Like, if we put that into
Yeah.
context, 3 years ago, we were like, it was still in a post COVID
COVID.
world.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were still wearing masks sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it wasn't even pre
Crazy.
COVID. Like,
I know.
that's
Well, that's the other
insane.
thing is like when you start taking these baby steps, like it's like exponential growth. Like you feel like
Yeah.
it's going to take a long time, but you actually get more and more comfortable and you learn a lot and it's just
Do you feel
awesome.
like the journey has gotten you closer to Allah? Or
Oh my
like, how has
god,
your
yeah.
relationship with your spirituality been through this journey?
Yeah, it definitely has, especially going from having like steady income to like when you have a business you don't have steady income. It's just like
A lot of faith.
it's a lot of faith.
Yeah.
And it's just like I'm going to leap and I'm going to trust that God's
Yeah.
going to catch me. And he
Yes.
always has.
Yes. Yes.
And like every time he catches you, that increases your faith little by little. And then it just reminds me a lot of like the story of Prophet Musa, or Moses, right? Where he was with his people and then the sea was in front of him and then Pharaoh's army was behind him and they were like, we're gonna die. And he was like, no, Allah's got me. And then the sea splits, right? And it feels a lot like
Yeah.
that sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
being a business owner, because I'm like, I don't think.
I mean, I
But
have a
yeah.
theory that like the entrepreneurial journey is the greatest spiritual path you can take because it
Oh,
is all about
1,000%.
the unknown and trusting that like what you need is going to come into your existence the moment you need it, just like a
Yeah.
miracle does. So,
No, that's
yeah.
so true. And that's been my experience over and over. SubhanAllah, like, because when you're not an entrepreneur, and this is not, it's like hate on people who aren't entrepreneurs,
Of
but there is
course.
something different about like when you have a steady paycheck coming every 2 weeks and you know exactly how you're going to pay your bills, it's like
Hmm.
a different level of like, well, I'm going to attempt to sell this thing today and I hope it works out and I hope Allah sends me
So
clients. And,
true.
also the other aspect of it too is sometimes when you want doesn't happen, it's also being like, okay, Allah, like, what does this mean? What are you trying to teach me? Like, it's
Yes.
the struggle also makes you like dig deeper into your faith to be able to like navigate the struggle, right?
And create your own unique relationship with Allah and
I
not
agree.
have it be so externally sourced. Like,
Yes.
for me, that's been my greatest joy of it. Like, you're right, it's not perfect and there's a lot that doesn't go right. And during those darkest moments, I've never felt closer to Allah.
Oh my
Never.
gosh, same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the entrepreneurial journey is difficult. I don't think it's for everyone, but I think like if you feel pulled to it, you need to do it. Because I
Yeah.
felt the itch I mean, I graduated college. I started doing your typical 9 to 5. I hated it within 2 months. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I don't know how women do this. I will like kill myself. Not in
Yeah.
like a, not in
I
a
get it.
be
Trust
concerned
me.
about my mental health way, but I'm like, I literally cannot do this.
But also half
Um,
concerned about my mental health because I was
but
in that space for sure.
yes, yes, exactly. But I was like, I can't do this, and I was like, okay, I like know I need to pursue entrepreneurship, but like I didn't know what it would look like. So I had that itch for a while, and then eventually, like, it kind of manifested itself in the form of finances for me, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to do this. Like, I need to respond
Yeah.
to the call, and when you don't respond to the call, I believe the call is divine guidance. I believe like
Me
your
too.
intuition is like Allah's way of guiding you to do what you need to do. And there is actually like for people who like really want to be like, intuition's like this woo thing. It's actually not. Like Islamically, there's a concept called firasa, which literally translates to intuition. So it is a thing. It's how Prophet Yaqub, Prophet Jacob knew that his son wasn't killed. Prophet Yusuf. He like knew he wasn't
His
dead.
body's intelligence, yeah.
Yeah, and it was his intuition. So,
Yeah.
anyways, tangent. But anyways, when you
Fun facts. I
keep
love these fun
this,
facts.
I know they're
Fascinating.
great, right? When you
Yeah.
keep disregarding the call, it doesn't go away. Like you can't bury it. It just wants to scream louder. You know, eventually
So
till
true.
you
true.
explode and you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like you don't want to get to the point where you're like, I'm gonna burn everything down and I'm gonna quit my job and I don't know how to pay rent next month. Like, don't do that.
Well, that happened to me actually. So.
Oh, is that what you did? Well, you just put yourself in like a more stressful state that way when it doesn't need to be that way.
100%. Yes. Oh my gosh. Because
Both
I'm
paths
so
work.
stubborn. I'm so stubborn. And
Yeah.
I love being comfortable. Like my comfort
Yeah.
zone is my favorite place to be.
Yeah, I think that's where a
And-
lot of people get stuck. Is the
Yeah.
comfort zone. Yeah.
100%. And then obviously Allah was like, no, I have a plan for you. And he took everything away. And I was
Everything
left with
imploded. Yeah.
nothing but just me and him having
you're
a conversation.
You're like, all right, God, I get it. I get it now.
Oh, what do you want from me?
Those like tear-filled conversations. Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. My favorite kind as a Scorpio
God, yeah.
woman.
Yeah, I mean, they're very therapeutic, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, there is one thing that you and I don't agree on, which I'm excited to dive into, where you mentioned that you think women should have a secret account from their husbands. Can you please enlighten me on why you believe it should be secret?
Okay. So it's less so more about having, like, intentionally being secretive, but more so not necessarily disclosing everything, right? As a disclaimer, I believe in signing prenups. When you go through the prenup process, you do have to disclose both parties what assets you have. So there is, at the beginning of your marriage, kind of everyone is aware of like, okay, I know my husband has like these properties, this much money, vice versa, right? However, I think like throughout the course of your marriage, you know, especially if you earn your own income, like I don't know that you necessarily have to divulge all your income sources or how much you made this month or what you spent your money on, right? Or like how much is in your bank account. And it's not necessarily like, I think for like legal purposes and beneficiary purposes, I think your husband should know, like, I have an account at Chase or I have an account with this investment brokerage, right? Or whatever, right? Because if, you know, God forbid anything happens to you, he is probably going to be the one who handles your affairs after. So he should know, like, where you have accounts. It's more so like, don't be
He doesn't
like,
need to know every detail.
Yeah, he doesn't need to know overly every detail. Don't be overly forthcoming about like how much money you have and like, you know, because I've also seen like, again, it goes back to that theme of self-preservation I was talking about earlier. You know, protect yourself, take care of yourself financially. Like I've had women and clients in my business who I've seen who like were overly forthcoming about their financial situation, and then that was used against them in the form of either financial abuse or again if divorce happens and then he was like, I want to get every last penny that you have, and you know, you just don't want to be. Or, you know, there was another client that I had whose husband was using her money to like pay off his loans and he wasn't telling her, like, so, you know, as an act of self-love and self-preservation, like,
First of all, it sounds like these people need better men to choose.
Yeah.
Like, choose better men.
Some of the choices.
Sorry, no hate, but please just be aware. If you're single, choose. Who you choose to marry is the biggest decision you'll ever make in your life.
Yeah,
And
I
your
agree.
body and your gut is going to tell you way more than this can. Because
Oh,
this gets
I
clouded
agree.
by, ooh, I need to get married. I'm turning this age. What are my parents going to think? Blah, 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 blah.
Right, right, right.
But your body is going
Your
to tell
body
you who's right
knows.
for you. Mm-hmm.
I agree. 1000%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's again from that place of like,
So I
let's protect
agree
ourselves.
with that
Yeah,
100%. Not
yeah.
only just from a place of protection, but also from a place of being sexy, of being that person who's like
Mhm.
mysterious, right? Like I remember when my husband and I had all of our finances in one bank account, and I couldn't even surprise him with a gift. I couldn't even surprise
Yes.
him with a new outfit for date night. He would see the charge, he would be anticipating it, he would be expecting it. But then as soon as we split our finances and I had my own, I would show up in a new outfit on date night and he would be like, "Oh my gosh, I
Yes.
love that. When did you get that?" You know, just like it
I
adds this
agree.
new layer of desire and mysteriousness that is the foundation of intimacy, in my opinion, which is
I
just,
so agree.
yeah,
You're absolutely right. Or if you want to surprise him with like a trip, for your
exactly.
anniversary.
Yeah,
Yeah, agree.
exactly.
1000%. So yeah, I'm not saying like be intentionally secretive and like
Yeah.
be like to the point where you're like it starts hindering your marriage, right? But it's like, hey, like
Also, come tax season, you gotta divulge
yeah,
everything
you have to
because,
divulge your income, but it's like someone left a comment recently on my reel, I think, where I talk about this, and they were like, "Well, when you do taxes, like, won't he see what's in your bank account?" And I'm like, "No, he doesn't need to see what's in your bank account to do taxes because you're submitting the tax papers, right? You're submitting like your W-2 or your 1099 or whatever, and like that's the income you report. He doesn't need to like physically log into your bank and see how much money you have to do your taxes. So it's like he's gonna know how much money you make, right? It's fine." It's more so like how you organize that money and where the money is, and maybe you
yeah,
have
he
some
doesn't need to
adjustments.
see every single dollar cent that's going in and out.
No, like he doesn't need to know that you like maybe put $1,000 in a Roth IRA somewhere. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
need to know, right?
Yeah.
And that's more so like it's just again like to maintain like the level of intimacy that you're talking about for the sake of self-preservation and
Protection.
protection.
Mhm.
I think women always thrive when there's just a little bit of discretion, when you don't put all your cards out there, as they say.
And you know what's funny that like yes, we're talking finances right now, but from a married woman, that goes in so many other aspects of life too, where it's
Yeah.
like, he doesn't need to know how you're spending all of your time. He doesn't need to know how you're like
Yes.
what you like to do, your hobbies, what your girl time, like your girlfriends, like there's like such a fine art and a beauty to, I think the secret to keeping marriage electric and fun and exciting and
I
magical
agree.
is a little bit of mysteriousness. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know you 100%, you don't know me 100%, but I know that I still trust you 100% with my heart
Oh
and my
my god.
soul. And I'm
Totally.
protecting my own self too.
Totally. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you hit the nail on the head. I think, women just need to be a little bit more,
But girl, you got that anxiety. You got to go to therapy. You got to
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally.
find
Yeah.
that self preservation, that self.
Self-preservation. If you have anxious attachment, please work on that. Please work on
Exactly.
anxious attachment. It's not going to go over well for you if you
And
don't work on it.
codependency was
And
a big one for me that I had
codependency.
to heal.
Yeah.
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 Man. Why do you think women are not financially empowered today?
Jeez, there's so many factors that go into this. Well, because do you want to talk about general population or like the Muslim community? Like, because there's different, layers to
Let's
this
start
conversation.
with the Muslim community.
Okay. Well, with the Muslim community, a lot of women are raised to think about marriage and it being their number one priority and how their life really starts when they get married. And it's like this epitome or this goal or this accomplishment, this milestone they have to achieve in their life. And we're always told your husband will take care of you financially. So, like, it goes back to the whole we get too relaxed about the financial aspect because we're supposed to get married and our husband's just going to magically take care of us and everything's going to be fine.
The
I
fairy
think that
tale.
leaves a lot of women really disempowered because it's like, so what that looks like on a practical basis is like financial literacy is not encouraged or prioritized for women, right? In our community. It's just
Yeah.
like, how many conversations do you see with Muslim women having about stocks after dinner when,
Yeah.
chai and desserts are being served versus the men, right? Like
Yeah.
women are just sitting and
Damn.
having
So true.
conversations about chai, right? Whereas like women are having conversations about cooking,
Or they're
right?
cleaning the kitchen.
Or they're cleaning the kitchen, or they're the ones serving the chai, right? Or they're talking about
Hmm.
like clothes. And we can talk about these things. It's fine. Like we're women, we have interests, different interests than men. But like I never had a serious financial conversation with friends until recently. And it's interesting. It's as soon as I kind of started becoming a financial coach, starting my business, that my friends in my inner circle started feeling more comfortable having more like serious financial conversations with me about like, hey, I'm thinking about buying this, investing in here, budgeting this way. What are your thoughts on that? And I'm like, this is so crazy that we don't have these conversations normally as women. We don't learn about this. If your parents, which a lot of parents, you know, in our communities don't teach financial literacy even to boys, but if they do teach it, they're going to prioritize teaching their sons over their daughters, right? Even doing taxes, it's like, oh, let's let the men handle the taxes. And it's like,
Honestly,
why don't we
even
teach
just
the
having
women?
a job, I don't know about you, but like I remember when I was in high school and I asked my parents if I could get a job, and they were like, no, like, why do you need
Yes.
one?
Yes.
And I didn't have my first real job until after college. Like,
Yeah.
I worked with them at the restaurant because they were like, oh, you want money? Then work for us, but you
Right.
can't work for someone else. And that
Yeah.
hindered me so much.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it was similar for our family as well. None of the girls worked in high school. And it was
Yeah.
only sort of out of necessity because we were having some financial difficulties that my siblings ended up and myself worked in college. But yeah, it's like, no, like we don't need to worry about that. Right. And it's like it's just
I didn't
and
even know like budgeting or anything when I got married, and my husband had to teach me all of it.
yes.
And I felt so like embarrassed where I was like,
Yeah.
damn, I
Yeah.
should
We
like
don't
know
go
this
into
as a
marriage.
25-year-old woman. Like, this is
We don't go
crazy.
into marriage knowing these skills, you know? It's like, oh, when we think about women getting married, the skills we prioritize for them is like cooking and cleaning,
Literally.
right?
Yeah.
And even when it comes to larger things, like even why so many women struggle with entrepreneurship, because we're not encouraged to be entrepreneurs. We're not encouraged to take risks. I studied abroad in London, but even my parents were like struggling with the concept of sending me abroad to study, you know, because they were like,
Of
oh, like
course.
women don't do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
but it's like if my brother wanted to, they'd be like, absolutely go. You're a man. Go stake your claim in the world. Like,
100%.
go take risks. Like,
So
so
true. The
that's like
double-edged
all
sword.
the and all those things really just like lead to the disempowerment of women financially, and it feels like we hit an age, you know, mid-20s event, you know, late 20s, early 30s, where we're like, we're playing catch up now, you know, like
Yeah.
because life catches up to you because you need to learn about money and be financially empowered, right? And then it catches up to you when you're not, and you're like, oh no.
I mean, honestly, I've seen it happen to women in their 40s and 50s who are going through
Yes.
divorce and they never budgeted
Yes.
or never learned anything. And it's not an age thing. And I want people to have so much grace and compassion for themselves. And know that like it's not their fault for not learning these things when you never really understand the importance unless you are put through the situation where you need to learn
Totally.
it. So that's also why I was so excited to bring you on the podcast today, because I hope it just sparks that conversation with my normal listeners that are always tuning in, learning about marriage, learning about love, but also the biggest component of making a relationship work and thrive is financial literacy for both parties on an equal level. And sometimes even teaching our partners, like you said, sometimes our men also aren't taught as much in the
Yes.
world, and sometimes they don't have the time. And sometimes if you're a stay-at-home mom or you're a stay-at-home wife or you just have extra time, maybe
Yeah.
you can pick up the learning and
Yes.
educate and give him the pointers and the high
Yeah.
level information so
I've
you
had that
can.
happen with my clients where it's
Yeah,
like maybe their husbands weren't the most knowledgeable on investing, and then they take my course because they have the time, and then they like teach their husbands, and they're the ones who fix up the investments for the household, and I'm like, that's
exactly.
great. We love that.
Yeah,
Like
like we're
people are
not gonna sit and
yeah.
conform to gender norms anymore. We're gonna do
Yeah, yeah,
whatever
yeah.
it takes, and whoever is the one with the more capacity is going to take on that role. And
Yes.
the goal is to just make sure that both of you are thriving in life, in love, in your homes, in your peace, in your harmony and joy together. And you need money in order to have fun in life.
So true. You
Amazing.
really do need money, but yeah,
Yeah.
I love talking about money. I think it's great. And I will say, like, I don't want to say that I want to claim that I've started a movement because I think that's bold. But I will say, like, from my experience, having
Yes, we can say that. Hello.
Thanks. And I made a reel about this recently, actually. And I was just talking about when I started 3 years ago talking about money on Instagram, there were a lot of questions to Muslim women. There were a lot of questions about, like, why should I do this? I'm scared. I don't know if I should. And now the questions in the last 3 years have been more like, okay, how? Right? And it's like more excitement than fear.
The world is changing.
The world is changing. I think people are, unfortunately, the crappy economy and the higher cost of living is also making people be like, I should probably learn, like, how to budget, how to invest, like, how to utilize credit cards. And so, yeah, the world is shifting, but also just, seeing just the difference in people's perspectives from when I started to now has been really great. So,
and it's because you were brave enough to go first, and that's what it means to start a movement. Is like, it's so taboo, but you don't create change unless there are brave humans like you that are willing to have that conversation first. That's what happened with me. Whereas, like, honestly, when I first started this podcast a year ago, I reached out to so many people to be like, hey, can we talk about marriage and, like, the real deal and, like, the real nitty gritty of it all? Because it's not all perfect.
It's not all shiny and roses and
it was
rainbows.
So hard for me to get couples to open up, and I had to pivot and, have a new strategy around, like, what am I bringing on to the podcast? I still am like, I want to have conversations with real couples with real problems, but it's definitely takes time to build that trust for me to have access to what goes on behind the closed doors.
But I'm actually seeing more of those now, like more of those kind of open conversations with couples. Honestly, probably in the last year.
Yeah.
So I think you were just a pioneer, girl, and I think it's just a matter of time. People will catch up to you. People will catch up to you. Don't worry. You're just ahead of your game.
I can't wait to see who I am in year 3, like you. So it'll be great.
Yeah. You're going to be like, hell yeah. Like, you're going to be having couples, like, having therapy sessions on your podcast.
Oh, I got the couch ready, guys. It's right here.
Oh, that'll be awesome to see when you get there.
Amazing. Well, Malak, thank you so much for your wisdom and your time today. It was incredible connecting with you. And how can my audience find you and how can they work with you?
Yeah, of course. So the best way probably to reach me is my Instagram. My Instagram is at so ITS, and then my name, so MalakKudaimi, at it's Malak Kudaimi. I'm sure Sana will share the handle with you guys.
Yes.
That's probably the best way to get in touch with me. If you would like to work with me further on finances, I offer sessions, one-on-one sessions. I work with couples, I work with individuals. I also have courses that teach you budgeting and investing, and I talk a lot about credit cards and also maximizing travel rewards, which if you're interested in free,
we do that a lot. Yes,
love
we
it.
need more information.
It's the best thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Love it. Definitely get in touch with me. I have a lot of free resources to get you started. And then if you want to work with me deeper, you can always DM me. Thank you so much for having me, Sana. I really enjoyed having this conversation. I could talk about this for days. So
we'll have you back.
Yes, inshallah.